All right, welcome back, Movement Specialist, to yet another episode of Try Playing Function, where we take a muscle, make it relevant to you so you can see it, feel it, move it, and teach it. Okay, today's going to be another analogy video. All right, now this is not going to be an analogy of just one muscle. It's with all of our muscles. But specifically, I am going to tie this into a little bit more hamstrings. So, we're going to use this theraband to simulate the muscle. Steve is going to be initial tuberosity. He's not an ass, but he's going to be initial tuberosity, okay? Go ahead and grab right here. And I'm going to be the distal insertion of the hamstrings. You can choose one. It could be the head of your fibula, or it could even be where your pes anserine attaches to your tibia, or it could just be that medial tibia, okay? So, what do we think about those hamstrings? What do they do? Well, they just flex the knee. I'm getting closer to the ischial tuberosity, right? But when I extend the knee, I get further back. And when we think about mobilizing the hamstrings, a lot of times you only think, I'm just going to stretch just exclusively by moving the knee further away. Much like lying on your back, kicking your legs straight up. Does that stretch these hamstrings? Absolutely. You can see how this is getting a whole lot more taut. But in Try Playing Function, you're probably used to this now. We move segments in all three planes of motion, not only from one bone, but from two. So from the leg end, me, to the butt end, Steve. All right, so we can get three planes of motion just by moving me. I can move back, getting tight. I can move to the right. If I can keep on moving to the right, that's even getting more taut, more stretch and feel. Do you feel that, Steve? Then I could also move this way, closer to the camera. This would be the difference between your biceps femoris as well as your semimembranosus and tendinosus. Has a lot of frontal plane component to where you'll get a stretch on one end, maybe not the stretch on the other. But last but not least, we have to think about this is all three planes of motion. We just did sagittal, we just did frontal, now we can also do transverse. When I drive that knee in and out, adding internal to external rotation of my femur, you will also be able to feel more of a stretch. That's again only half the story. This might have broadens your mind to knowing that you can still stretch one segment in all three planes of motion. This will make your mind explode with thinking that you can move the butt end too. Steve, go ahead and move your ischial tuberosity away from the femur. So think about this as more your single leg deadlift or your more classic standing hamstring stretch. Perfect. You can get it that way. But Steve can also get it by moving to the side. Get that frontal plane motion. This is where sometimes I see some runners stretch out their hamstrings. They come here, they might add a little bit of a crossover and still stretch a little bit as well. Or you might see them widen up and still go down as well. That's stretching the lateral or medial aspect of the hamstrings. Not bad. Can you get a little bit of transverse plane action on me, Steve? He can twist that way. That's much like if I were to cross over like this, get a good stretch, but then I'm starting to twist at my hips to feel a little bit more. You'll be able to feel all those at home if you do this top-down approach on stretching these hamstrings. But what if we do them both at the same time? So Steve can move away as I move away. This will obviously get more length a whole lot more quickly. If Steve moves to the left, to the right, and I move to the right, this will even get more length. And if Steve stretches his hamstring, twisting to the right, and I twist to the right, we're going to be getting a whole lot more length too. If you're kind of confused about how to exactly do this, please go back to our hamstring video that I did with Steve, where I got his biceps femoris wound up in all three planes of motion. He felt the best stretch he's ever felt in his life, and he's still probably shunning me for it. He's still probably feeling it now months afterwards. To drive this analogy even further, I'm going to get a towel out, soaked in water. Austin Kachi, thank you so much for giving the idea for this. This works beautifully. So we got a nice, wet towel here. And before we start, we're just going to wind it up just a little bit, not much, but just so we can make this analogy a little bit more relevant to you. Sagittal plane. Steve and I, we're going to move backwards from each other. Do you see water come out? Absolutely. Steve, move to the right. I'll move to the right. Do you see even more water come out? Steve, twist to the right. I'm going to twist to the right. Do you get even more water out? You can see that we are winding this towel up in all three planes of motion. Can you wind up your hamstrings in all three planes of motion? Heck, can you wind up all your muscles in all three planes of motion to where you get the distal segment, you get the proximal segment to move away from each other at the same time to get the most effective mobilization for your body. Beautiful analogy. Thank you, Austin. Once again, thanks for tuning in to Triplane Function. We'll see you next time.